What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Friday morning to you. Thank God it is Friday. Hopefully you're coming to the end of a great week. Can't wait for this Sunday. This Sunday we're in part 4 of our series called Game Plan. See you live or online is going to be good. But today we're in them red letter words, and this has been a really good chapter. The final chunk and the final story is another moment where Jesus feeds the multitudes. And I love these words out of verse 32. Jesus called the disciples to himself and says, I have compassion. Everybody say compassion. I have compassion on the multitude because they have now continued with me 3 days and they have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry lest they faint on the way. I want you to notice just something here. They've been following with Jesus for 3 days. I don't know if someone packed a lunch or if there was some food on the way somehow. I'm not sure what was going on. 3 days? And after 3 days, you get hungry. I mean, we're in a season of fasting, and I'll do some intermittent, some 24, and of course, Daniel's, and I do it all. And man, I'm telling you what, when you could start going without food, like, you get hungry. That's the kind of the thing. And so Jesus, he says this, I have compassion on them. And this is a word that Matthew has used repeatedly. Back in Matthew chapter 9, I think he uses it when he talks about Jesus having compassion on the multitudes because they were like a sheep without a shepherd. Later, it talks about him healing 2 blind men because he had compassion on them. I think he heals a whole bunch of people, maybe in like Matthew 11 or something like that. It says he saw the multitudes, that they were lame and sick, and he healed them because he had compassion on them. I guess my biggest encouragement to you today is just simply that you serve a God of compassion. Sometimes we look at this life and this world around us and we see suffering or we see pain and we think, man, God, why don't you do something about it? And, of course, sometimes I think God's looking at us saying, hey, you live in this world. There's a lot of suffering around you. Like, why don't you do something about this? I don't know always why God doesn't answer prayers. We kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. Like, what do we do when we feel like God's not speaking to us? Whenever we experience pain or suffering, here's what I truly believe. I don't always know why some of this stuff happens. I don't know why God sometimes heals some people and not others. Why sometimes God seems to work things out for some and not. I just don't think it works like that. I don't think it's that nice little tidy package. I think it's much more dynamic than that. But whatever it is, the why behind it, I know the answer is this. I know that the answer is not because he doesn't care. And I think his compassion is put on full display on the cross. I think the cross is the symbol of love. When we think about the fact that God is love, that Jesus came to be the full expression of that love, that he came to teach us the way of love, to teach us to love God and to love one another as he loved us. And so I think that compassion, that's the God that you serve. And so the cross, when you look at it, you're like, well, clearly Jesus took on all suffering. It wasn't that he was detached from our suffering. He actually participated in our suffering and redeems us from the sinfulness that causes our suffering. And so I don't always know why. I'm not a pastor with all the answers. I remember doing a funeral for a woman one time, and her son had died, which I think it's one thing for somebody who's older who died at somewhat of an expected time. That's still very, very difficult, and there's a lot of grief there. But when someone dies young and unexpectedly, and the parents having to maybe bury a child, that is some unbelievable grief. And she asked me that question, why? Can you tell me why? And I flat out told her, I have no idea. I have no idea. I just know this. I just know I can't explain everything. I don't have the answer for everything. I just know it's not because God doesn't care. That's all I know. And it was refreshing because I think too many preachers try to make answers that fit, and it's like they don't fit. The answers we don't know. And there's so much that we won't know on this side of eternity, and hopefully we'll know one day in heaven. But for now, I can just assure you and comfort you that God is a compassionate God. As a matter of fact, that is the name of God in the Old Testament, that when he introduced himself as I am the Lord, I am the kind and compassionate, the slow to anger and abounding in love God. I want you to know that Jesus shows up full of that same compassion, that he's loving people, helping people, feeding people, healing people, all because he's driven by compassion, that God does not just love us, God is God's love. And so, and then again, going back to the idea that the way that we actually show God love is by loving one another. And so let's be in on the redemptive process. Let's be in on the thing that brings heaven to earth. Let's be in on the thing that relieves suffering here on the earth by acting with that same compassion that Christ had towards us. Can I get an amen? Church, you're awesome. I love you so much. God bless you. And I will see you on Sunday morning live or online. God bless.